Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to Le Portee. This is your weekly destination to hear all about what's happening in the hospitality industry and around the world. My name is Jeremy, and I'm accompanied with Mish.
Hello. What we do for you is dig through hundreds of different newspapers so you don't have to.
And we also talk about what's happening in the world. All the global events will be covered if they're interesting and relevant. And we also take a look at the world of academics and software. There's anything you need to know, you'll be here.
All of it, all the global events,
All.
everything. There is a disclaimer at the end of this. We do add our own opinion to this whole situation, but we do also provide the sources. So feel free to fact check us every time. So, Monsieur Jérémy, how are you this week?
Ali's good. Everything is all right. So far, so good. Manila is becoming very upset with the summer. We have a very nice average of 35 degrees, and I am extremely red. So everything is all right.
I've heard you had a very bad negative experience at that Airbnb recently. Is that true?
Well, I wouldn't say it was very negative, but you remember we were discussing, I think, last podcast about how the ratings are going down with Airbnb and pretty much every single other hospitality offer. And my point was that Airbnb basically at first was telling you that, hey, it's cheaper than a hotel room and you have better service, as the host will welcome you personally and give you tips about the city, tell you where to go, where not to go, answer your question, I don't know, about metro stations, metro timeline, how long it takes to go to the airport with the taxi, all these things. And my point was that all this is gone. And this is
All
maybe
of it,
why,
forever.
well, yeah, I really feel like all of it is gone and the price has gone up. So this is why people are, rating lower. And ironically enough, after that, we recorded the podcast. I booked an Airbnb, right? And it it really matches everything that I believe, and that's kind of sad. So we were off to the city called Tagaytay in the Philippines, which is very beautiful. It has a volcano in the center, and the city is built on the edge of the volcano. So it's super cool, great food, breezy weather, everything is fine. I'm renting this Airbnb, and as soon as I book, and that's the other photo if you want to show it. As soon as I book, I get this massive long auto message from the owner, and that tells you everything that you have to know about the booking. And it also tells you as a guest that don't talk to me because everything is in this message, right? Like self check-in, of course. It's not like the owner is going to welcome you itself. And my favorite is the little bullet point number 2: by exactly 3 p.m. or once the room is ready, we will send an authorization letter to go up to the room. So you give me every single thing I need to self check in, but if I don't have a notarized paper from you that says I can go ahead, I cannot go inside the room. What's happening before 3 p.m. in the room? Like, what is happening there? Is there like some drug dealing, some gold dealing? I don't know. It's so tough. I find it very not welcoming. So it doesn't encourage the guest to communicate with the host and ask questions. And I dared to ask a question after that. I dared to ask, is there
Oh,
any way I can drop my bag in the room before 3 p.m. without being entitled with a notarized authorization letter? And the answer was rather shitty, in my opinion, is that there's no question about, we don't talk about dropping the bags. We only talk that, no, if you want to come in before 3 p.m., you have to pay. And that's it. And I'm a hotelier. I understand that all the rooms cannot be ready before check-in time. I understand we need to manage housekeeping and all these things, and that's totally cool. But in this case, we're just asking a favor to the host. It's like, hey, can I just drop my bag so I can actually have my hands free when I roam in the city? I
yep.
don't want to carry my carry on. This is not much. And you worked hotel, I worked hotel. How many million times have we accommodated guests with luggage? And the fact that it's just like, oh no, sorry, you have to pay, period. I just find it as plenty room in this building, and it's just making as much money as possible. And ergo, my cold, okay, I guess we'll wait then, thank you, answer that I gave him at 10:23 a.m. on that day. So I just want to follow up on this because it's exactly what we discussed, and I think it's sad. I think it takes away the great purpose of Airbnb.
This is a very sad story, indeed. It's also technically a very easy solution. Just find a if you don't have space on site or you don't have a place to put some luggage locker, just find some provider locally. No problem. Here is a little company. It will cost you a little bit to store luggage with them, but you have a little discount with us. So at least that's a option that is
Fair enough. Or you
right.
can just open the room, let the guests put the luggage in, and close the room.
I mean, housekeeping is technically in there as well, right? They usually probably are on site preparing something. So fair enough.
And I'm okay with that.
I
But
think
I just feel like it could have been accommodated and communicated differently.
this is definitely representative of the entire Airbnb industry. I think this is on a global scale. Airbnb hosts everywhere
Well,
charging
oh,
people.
come on. You know that now the guests are not meeting the hosts anymore.
No, it's true. Yeah, that's the
Come on.
side effect of it all. And I mean, but I feel like right, that's not a that's not maybe necessarily the problem here. It's just that they haven't actually thought of the next step, right? They think you can just give them automated check-in, and that's it. But people still have needs, and you still need to facilitate those somehow, right? So whether you
It's
are
a
on,
purely rental experience. There's no hospitality behind that.
yeah,
It's just it's
yeah,
a
yeah,
transaction where you rent a condo and that's it.
and
And
also
I just think it defies the purpose of Airbnb, and
oh,
that's too bad because the concept is amazing.
also with authorized permission to enter, definitely very much like a rental experience.
Like if I don't have the stamp on it, am I gonna get arrested by the police, by the security guard or something? I don't know. It's just for carrying like a fake. I don't know. Anyway, that was just my little introduction.
Oh
I'm
yes,
French. I like to complain. This is
yes.
done. We can now move into more interesting news.
Let's move into something new. What I found this week, and it is not it's not a piece of news that represents the industry news sector, but it is a combination of an offering that a lot of hotels are doing now, and it's basically slip tourism. So to me, that's new. I'm sure maybe some other people out there have tried it before, but several hotels worldwide
Never heard.
are now basically offering slip tourism packages. So, for example, and there's different examples from all over the world. Whether it is basically a kind of tiny home in the middle of the forest where the sound is this perfect sound, there's nothing. Um, Nothing there to disturb you, or plug off in the middle of London, basically a hotel in the middle of London, but it's super quiet as well, and everything is based on sleep. If you follow the link on our newsletter, or if you're watching us live on YouTube, you will be able to see some pictures here, but it's quite nice, right? In a nutshell, though, right, it's basically repackaging the same thing everybody has, right? A hotel room somewhere in a nice place, marketing it differently, but still, right? It's obviously is a bit of a trend, and several companies, several hotel brands out there worldwide, right? It's not just one place, are kind of jumping on this and trying to upsell their guests into a sleep package. So, for example, a hotel in India was offering a foot massage in your bed already, and basically everything around the bed. You don't have to leave; you can just sleep. Some hotels are actually offering a scientific experience, so basically teaching you a sleep system where you can enjoy sleep in a scientific way, and maybe recover better. So there's a lot of things you can offer here, but it's like another package, right? And another type of way to stay somewhere, and if people are booking it, obviously, it's working. And I mean, given there's a lot of books on sleep, right? That usually means there's demand for people to understand and improve their sleep. A lot of people probably are not really doing too well with their sleep, so it's covering a need, and technically you don't really have to do anything new to offer in a hotel to cover sleep, but still, right? It's a different way to communicate for hoteliers. So hats off, for that, I suppose. Any thoughts?
But it's smart. It's funny because technically you go to a hotel to have a good night of sleep, but I think it's taking that further, and your initiative to make sleep packages. It sounds so ironic, but sleeping packages, and yeah, I'm sure it's gonna grow very well, especially in Northern America.
Other continents don't need to sleep. Eh? It's just the Westerners that have a certain lack of sleep.
Well, we have maybe different approach on these questions, let's say.
That's fair enough. Fair enough. On that note, we can jump maybe to the next piece of news. I know you've brought us quite a lot of Taylor Swift media and sources news this week.
Yeah, it is a huge deal. Taylor Swift is in concert for the Air Tour in Southeast Asia, and I am unfortunately surrounded with Taylor Swift fans. And all I've been hearing is about this controversy that the city state of Singapore has been extremely smart, and they decided to pay Taylor Swift to only perform in Singapore, which means skipping all the major Southeast Asian capitals. No Jakarta, no Manila, no Bangkok. And that is a very interesting thing. It's very smart, first of all. Singapore is the most developed country in Southeast Asia. So that's great for them that such a superstar is only performing in Singapore for many, many reasons. It drives a lot of revenue to the hotels, to the airlines, to the restaurants. It adds up to the prestige of the city state. However, there's something that bugs me with this is how can you privatize culture? Because, Southeast Asia has a lot of countries that are in development, right? And a very large amount of these people are not particularly wealthy on a Western standard. So that questions the fact that they cannot access culture because flying from Manila or Jakarta or Bangkok to Singapore, first of all, it has a cost. That's not cheap. We're looking at $200 round trip. Renting a hotel for 1 or 2 nights in Singapore is also quite pricey. Eating there is quite pricey. So it adds a barrier for these people to access culture, to access the concert of their idol. And even though I understand why it is such a smart move for Singapore on so many levels, it bugs me because it makes culture unavailable to a great amount of people who are not the wealthiest. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that because I find that it's a very interesting subject.
It's a bit of a math problem as well, right? Obviously, Taylor Swift has agreed to this. She got paid some sort of a sum, right, to only exclusively perform in Singapore, missing out quite a lot of countries. So she must have calculated, all right, if I only perform there, how much do you have to pay me? But I can't believe that Singapore has paid that much that it was more profitable for her, first of all, to skip out on, let's say, 20 other concerts, in whatever, Manila, whatever. There's so many different capitals there, so many countries, and I'm sure there's enough target group there to attend her concerts. And second of all, it's also an image thing, like you're saying, right? It's I'm not sure how how loyal Taylor Swift concerts the Taylor Swift fans are, right? But if my favorite band would say, "Sorry, I'm not going to your country because someone paid us exclusively to go here," I would be a bit pissed.
And they are. A lot of fans in those countries are very upset, but somehow they're upset at Singapore, not upset toward Taylor Swift who cashed in the money.
Oh, well, that's the thing. I don't think Singapore cares, right? Singapore in anything is going to benefit on this one. The only side effect here, negative one, is going to be for Taylor Swift. What they're going to do to Singapore? They're not going to go to Singapore for work and travel business related purposes? Yeah, they are, right? Singapore is doing pretty well, and they're going to do even better now because they had this deal. But Taylor Swift is, I feel like she's missing out, and she's got an image issue now, probably, maybe at least, in the countries that she's missing out, and maybe potential cash loss as well. I can't believe Singapore has paid her so much that it would cover all of the concert, profits that she has. Or maybe,
Some
maybe we've missed out on this. Maybe she just doesn't want to travel to every single country and just wants to get it done with.
maybe there's some sort of convenience with it, but when you do a world tour, you're expected to do a world tour. So I just find it interesting, and some people are talking about 3 million per gig to different
Wow,
countries.
I mean, I think that's a dark path to follow, and well, Singapore has definitely opened up a Pandora box here. Because I don't think, well, there might have been something similar of that accord, at least maybe something we don't know about, right? Maybe there was an exclusive contract that wasn't so public, perhaps, right? I haven't heard of this
But if
before.
it happened once, it could happen again. Like
Yeah.
Coldplay was here in the Philippine Arena a month ago, but what if next time they say, "Oh, sorry, we have a deal with Hong Kong." It's so our country's gonna bid for superstars to come perform only in their countries. Like, if there is a European tour, are all the countries gonna write checks and see who has the biggest check to have? Um, I have no idea. Like superstars like Taylor Swift. Is this really gonna develop this way? It's just it. I understand it saves cost for them as well because they don't need to move around with the stage and all this and fly the planes and all these things. But isn't culture made to be shared by the greater number?
Oh, I
Are we
see.
now creating a business? I know, right? I'm
Oh.
so I know. I kind of disgust myself saying that, but
Very cute.
are it's like I don't know. It bugs me, and I'm afraid that this business model is going to develop more, and massive bands, massive idols are going to auction their presence, and that's going to take culture away from a lot of people.
I think I already can envision our weekly image, a line of countries lined up to Taylor Swift to pay her money so she can perform in that country. I think this is, yeah, well, we'll find out, right? Time will tell. I, I don't see that it makes sense for, let's say, someone who is not Taylor Swift, maybe someone who is not top one musician in the world and actually respects their fans and likes them and just wants to make money and do world tours at the same time. We'll see. I think on that note, we can jump to something else.
Definitely.
Hilton has made the news twice, at least in our newsletter this week. First piece of news is, well, it's kind of all this sort of connected into one big topic. Hilton is effectively expanding into different markets, whether it is markets that are, different target groups and different hotel brands or different countries. So the first piece of news is Hilton has purchased, and it's been everywhere in all the hospitality news, a hotel brand called Graduate. You can see, well, for some, you can imagine it as a hotel chain that is basically targeted towards university towns. That's why it's called Graduate, right? It's very sort of university themed, and it works really well. They they have hotels in Cambridge and Oxford, and overall, I suppose doing pretty well. So Hilton has purchased them with the idea of expanding in those markets with a very specific brand, right? This is sort of this typical hotel chain expansion where you buy up, you don't really expand your own, you don't create your own brand, you just buy existing ones, and then you keep growing that given your land property owner network, basically. And then the second news is Hilton has basically made like a little PR announcement, and I mean obviously that's something that is beneficial for their stock price. But basically they are planning to triple their growth in India, go from 15 markets that are currently there to 75, planning to basically double their inventory in 2-3 months, so every quarter in India, which is like a pretty crazy number. At least that's the announcement, right? We'll see if that actually will happen. And all of that is basically fueled by, well, internal market growth, right? In India right now, there's a huge apparently investment in infrastructure, roads, stuff like this. So a lot of markets, a lot of stuff is being more reachable by business travelers or whoever, also by Westerners. So they're basically bringing in all of their, not all of them, but some of their brands, and they're planning to expand in India, right? It's something we've been talking to quite a lot about. India as a market is got a lot of potential, right? Some people say it's kind of the next China, right? It's still got huge 7 or 5% GDP growth annually, depending on what the government is doing that year. So I mean, Hilton is jumping on the train, and they're not the only ones, right? We've heard a few weeks ago, Accor is growing there like crazy. So India is definitely becoming a new market that hotel chains can grow in, and it's more accessible, right? I guess there's maybe more commercial sort of money going around, or investors are more mature and ready to open up Hiltons as well, right? So pretty good for Hilton, I would say.
It's very smart because it grows the number quite a lot, and we often compare hotel groups by amount of rooms that they have. So it's definitely a good move for them. And as you said, India is growing very fast. You talked about the GDP, but the population is also growing very fast, very ambitious, and that probably means a lot of acquisition of already existing properties and then rebranding them. But why not? If it works for them, I mean,
Yeah.
this is great.
Congratulations to Hilton. I think it's just overall good strategy um, for growth in the future. All right. Next piece of news that you have brought us something. Surprise, surprise! Something from the cruise industry. Would you like to tell us more? I heard you have had a little bit of experience working in the cruise industry, cruise sector.
There's never enough cruise in our life.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I worked 7 years on cruise ship, and a complaint from guests that comes back all the time, whether it's at the front desk, whether it's in the comments that they leave when they leave the ship, whether it's also complaint from the crew, is that the internet is incredibly slow, and this is due to the satellite connection technology. Uh, it's very easy, and there's no way to make it faster except by paying incredibly large amount of money. We're talking about like this very bad. But then Starlink has arrived, and more cruise ships have been looking into that, and it seems that it's a very reliable solution because there's no dead spot, there's no blank area, and the ping is very good, the connection is very good. So a lot of companies, and especially MSC, have been investing a massive amount of money into equipping all the vessels with those Starlink antennas, and they can finally deliver the promise of high-speed internet at sea. And we know how people need Instagram at all time. We need how people are connected to VOD. It's very important. So now, finally, there can be some VOD services on your tablet that doesn't lag or that can actually exist. And that's great for the guest because it really answers a need that they have to stay connected. And that's also really great for the crew, which means that the crew will finally be able to access some quality internet. To give you an idea, 7 years ago, on the company I was working for, I had cent per minute to access a very low speed internet. Crew member would spend from 50 to 500 euro per month on internet bill. And that was terribly bad. And that was expensive because the technology was expensive. I'm really excited to see what the prices for the crew and for the guests is going to be with this new technology. This is really, really great. And just to give you another idea of the price the guests pay per day, it can range from $7 to $30 a day to access the internet on one device.
That's
Depends the
ridiculous.
cruise line.
That's ridiculous. Yeah.
And yet people pay. And if it's that expensive, it's not necessarily for a margin question, but it's because the technology is so expensive and the bandwidth is so limited that it's pricey.
Not
There's
anymore.
even systems, well, not anymore,
Mm.
hopefully, but on another cruise line that I used to work for, if you were not actively browsing your phone, the server on the ship would disconnect you to free some bandwidth for other users. So you would spend your time connecting and connecting and connecting on the portal to actually access internet. And I find it incredibly poor as a service, but it's interesting how companies are trying to, maximize the bandwidth per user. And hopefully all these problems of price and quality will go away with Starlinks and cruise ships. I'm really excited to see how that's going to go.
About time, I guess. But I mean,
Right?
you could also say, right? They could advertise cruise ships as a digital detox, but not anymore. Now you can watch your
Yeah.
Netflix and sit on your little cruise
Yeah.
cabin and do nothing with your life.
That's the idea. But this is a really great change for us. So really excited to see how that's going to go.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I think we have time for one more piece of news.
Definitely.
So I have brought you something really exciting, and it is academic news. Are you ready? Exactly. Very, very amazing. So, question to you: why do you think people stay in grand hotels?
Because they are more they're bigger in terms of size, because that's what grand means in French. But they also this grande idea of something exceptional. It's a grand show. It's a grand hotel. Is
R-
it? Is that it?
wrong, Jeremy. You don't get it. Sorry, you worked too long in cruise industry. No, an academic paper basically interviewed people who work in Grand Hotels and tried to understand why do people stay in Grand Hotels versus, let's say, more regular hotel chains, or things that are not considered old school Grand Hotels with 100-year history, based on a case study in the Grand Hotel de Porto. So there is a hotel in Porto in Portugal, and the results were, I mean, it's not very surprising, but in a way, you're also right, Jeremy. So the number one topic was listed as hotel history. So then tradition, which in a way is the same thing, and finally, facilities of that hotel and the quality of service. And they basically listed that not only as reasons for guests to stay in the hotel, but also for people to keep working in there. Because indeed, in the Grand Hotels, a lot of people work for 20, 30, 40 years, right? Right, so now, interesting paper, but I think there is a few issues with it. First of all, it's just an interview with 9 people, so it's not very academic. And second of all, they don't actually interview guests, right? So there's been a very good paper, a report by IBM years ago, where they interviewed almost 150,000 employees about what they think matches IBM services and why do people want to work, want to get IBM product services versus then what the actual clients of IBM wanted. And it did not match. It was actually the polar opposite. So basically people cared about, discounts, good pricing, stuff like this. And none of that was listed as a reason why people would want to use IBM products. And I think there might be something similar here if somebody would go out there and actually interview Grand Hotel guests. Good. Not every academic paper is created equal. Let's put it this way. But I think it's worth looking at this because, and that's the question in itself, right? Even all of this wonderful information that we dig up and all of this stuff that is out there published. If the quality of academic papers can be like this, imagine, just regular news sources, newspapers, where they state a statement and everybody takes that as fact, right? So I think we'll try to find a few sources on this. Actually, I think it's a very interesting topic to discover, and maybe we'll talk about it next week. Why do people stay in Grand Hotels, if at all? Because it's not guaranteed that they stay more than other hotels, right? Also, the comparison, I think what would be really interesting is to see what is the average duration of an employee staying in a hotel by like star rating, or let's say hotel chains, Grand Hotels, budget hotel chains, small private B&Bs. All of that I think it will be very interesting to see where people actually stay longest, where the churn rate is the least.
I don't think I know anyone working in a Grand Hotel. I know people work in palaces, but I don't know people working Grand Hotel.
Well, I have a small experience working there, and I know a few people who still work there. What it states in the news source here in the academic paper sounds very much what they would say, right? But whether that actually matches the reality in the eyes of the guests is a different thing.
And that's always the biggest cash prize, right? Matching guest expectations. That's what we all fight for as a hotelier, and where we fail most of the time.
Well, yes, I think so. But yeah, of course, if somebody pays 1,000 euros per room, the expectation's a whole other level, right? But then again, even budget guests complain, so it doesn't matter. It's just people by default. Okay, well, I think on that note, we can finalize this week's news. If you want to check out the full newsletter, please check out our website at leportee.com, provided in the description. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.